Well, my name is Christine Mann Darden, and I was born here in Monroe back in 1942. There were 5 of us. I am the youngest, and by the time I was 8 years old, they were all gone, and so I was there with my parents. I started to elementary school in Union County. I was young, almost 4, and my mother taught in a 2-room school, and I did the first grade work. And she promoted me to the 2nd grade, and so the next year I actually went to Winchester in Monroe. I played with the boys a lot over near where I live because I loved to skate. I loved to ride the bicycles, and I could actually outskate them and outrun them on the bicycle pretty frequently, although the bicycle was a 26-inch when I was still 4 or 5 years old. And I would have to jump off of it and get out of the way so it wouldn't fall on me. Dad taught for a while and was a principal for a while. Mother taught her entire career. Education was treated highly at home. I left here when I was about 13, 14 years old when I went to boarding school. It was a Methodist boarding school right on the eastern side of Asheville. And when I got there in the 11th grade, I took plane geometry, and I really enjoyed the plane geometry. I liked the way the teacher taught that. It was on to college, and I was planning to major in mathematics. But when I got there, the students coming from the larger cities and the larger school systems had far more of the higher math. And then my dad called and said, well, I think you might be better off getting a degree in teacher education and get that in your mathematics and your science. And so my senior year, I'm ready to do my student teaching. So I do my student teaching in math, also then sign up for a couple of, actually I think it was 3 math classes. And then after first semester, I did my student teaching in physics. I signed up for 3 or 4 more math classes. And then I was ready to graduate. So I went to Lawrenceville at James Solomon Russell High School, and one of the teachers who was there says, hey, look, Virginia State teaches in-service classes free to people who teach in Virginia. We're driving up there Saturday to register for some classes. It was a 60 miles drive. That year, I did it every Saturday. I went with that group, and we went up and took classes, and everything worked well, and I enjoyed it. Then I had a break in there. I got married and I moved back to Tidewater. And I was at Norcom High School in Portsmouth teaching. I found out Virginia State's classes were not on Saturday this time. They were on Friday evenings. So I'm still gonna do this, but that means I'm gonna be in the night coming home sometimes. I don't wanna be out there alone. And so I said, I'm gonna find 2 or 3 teachers that need to ride with me. And as we approached the end of the first semester, these teachers approached me and says, we've decided we're not taking any classes next semester. I said, oh gosh, that kind of hit me. I'm not happy about that, but I gotta keep going, I can't quit. And so I continued to go, but once I got on the highway, we didn't get out until about 10:30 at night. I would put my head halfway out the window so I wouldn't fall asleep. Right after that, I found out my husband had gotten a fellowship to get a master's degree in biology at Virginia State. I went back up to the teacher and I said, you know, it looks like we're gonna be moving here. He said, oh, you're looking for a job. He says, let me take you across the hall to the head of the physics department. He is looking for a research assistant in aerosol physics. He wants somebody who is going to calculate the light scattering of non-spherical particles in the atmosphere. Was wondering if you would take that position. And I said, well, yeah, I'd be great to take that. And that they were gonna pay me for that. And I guess they quoted some numbers, but then they said, but that's not the only thing we'll give you. We will also pay for you to get a master's degree. Oh, well, great, I want that in applied mathematics, and that will work out fine for me. And so the next 2 years, I was taking those classes to get the master's, but also doing the light scattering work. And as I was finishing, I said, well, let me go out to placement office and see if they have anything. So I went by, And I told the young lady I was graduating with a master's in applied mathematics. And she says, well, where in the world have you been? I said, what do you mean? She says, didn't you know NASA was going to be here recruiting? I said, well, no, I didn't. She says, here, you fill out this application, get it back to me tomorrow. I'm going to mail it in. I did that and got it back to her. She mailed it in. And about 2.5 weeks later, I had an offer from NASA. At about that time when I got there, the Apollo program had started, and I was assigned to that area. They put women in computer offices, they called them. They called them all computers. The engineers would come into the computer office and say, we need a mathematician to do such and such and such. What the engineers had to do now that the Apollo program had started was they had to tell the speed at which the capsule was re-entering the atmosphere and the angle at which it was re-entering the atmosphere. The speed, of course, the vehicle could get too hot and fail, and you might lose all of the people that were in the capsule. The angle would be like a belly bust, and this is especially what I tell kids on a pool. I said, you don't want to bounce on that atmosphere and bounce back out into space. You want to go smoothly into the atmosphere. And so they were responsible for doing that. So I was working with them on some of that. And then I went back to the office, and one of the young ladies in there, I said, why are all the women in the computer offices and all the men in the engineering offices? I guess they all have engineering degrees. And she said, no, they don't. She says, there's several of them over there that have math degrees. I said, oh, is that right? And then I started thinking, well, I'm going to ask the leader if there's a possibility I might get transferred over to engineering. And I did ask him, and he says, no, I don't think that's a possibility. So I definitely didn't like that answer. I was thinking of what I could do, and then I says, well, I think I should go to a higher level supervisor. And so I made an appointment with the director of this high-speed aerodynamics division. And I went in and I said, I'd like to ask you a few questions, if I might. I'd like to know why, if you have a male and a female coming here with pretty much the same background, why is it that they are assigned to such different jobs? The men are learning how to do the research, they're giving talk about their research, they are publishing papers about their research, and then once they publish, Langley promoted more those who have been publishing. The women they are not giving talks, they are not doing research, they are not writing papers or giving papers, and so they are not getting the benefit of the things that the men are learning. He looked at me and he says, you know, I have never had anybody ask me a question like that before. And I says, well, I'm asking it now. And I left and went back to my office, and 2 weeks later, I got promoted because I had been in that office about 5 years now. And then I was told that I was transferred to engineering, and I would be working in a section that had been created to try to soften the noise of the sonic boom of a supersonic airplane. At Langley, if you were a computer and a female, you could not apply for any of the schooling that they offered in their graduate programs. But once I was changed to engineering, I could take classes at George Washington University. So I immediately went to the manager of the program from George Washington and say, I would like to sign up to work on a degree in engineering and maybe a doctor of science. So I said, I don't want anybody telling me I don't have the background to do what I'm doing. I did that job, and then I became the assistant director of the Center for Strategic Planning. So then I worked with the senior staff, and we would have retreats and everything discussing what should be our perspective for doing such and such, coming up with the ways we were going to do that. So I held that position for a while. And then after that, they combined the public affairs office with the education office, and I headed both of those. I guess I made the decision. I thought I was ready to retire. In 2019, I received a great honor, and that was a Congressional Medal of Honor, and that was just really something.